Hi, everybody. I know I've been gone for a little bit, but I'm here to share that I will be back very soon with all new incredible stories. I'm so excited and I cannot wait. But in the meantime, I wanted to share an episode from a show called Love, Lust, Fear. I was honored that host Jake asked me to come on as a guest to talk about love and spirituality. I had so much fun. The conversation was absolutely fascinating, and I just know you're going to love it. So please take a listen and let me know in the comments what you think. And we will be seeing you very soon with all new episodes. Stay tuned.
Disclaimer. The information shared on this podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered as professional advice or a substitute for seeking professional advice.
For me, I'm a big believer in karma. My joke is karma's a big old bitch and she's going to come back and get you. But I do.
It's true. I mean, you're not wrong. I just laugh because how authentic you are.
I think there's a difference between being religious and being spiritual.
100%
Absolutely.
agree.
Yeah. I feel like spirituality is like you have a direct access to something bigger than you, whatever that you believe. I was dating this guy and we had been intimate, like most normal dating people do. Well, the next day, he brought me a Bible. And it was basically like, you need to find God.
Says the person that was intimate with me.
And I was like, wait a second, the double standard.
You know that when you go to a psychic, sometimes you're going to be a skeptic, but other times, I don't know. I feel sometimes people may be uncomfortable. They may get to the root of something.
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to know.
Your arms are folded now and nobody can see this, but I can tell you're a little bit defensive.
We are walking her through the steps that we had already walked and setting her up for success to get away from him. And right when she got her restraining order, he broke into her home and attacked her. And the rest is history. They believe that he was there to either kidnap and or kill her and rape her as well.
I'm Jake Deptula.
And I'm Michele Locke.
And this is Love Lust Fridays. Here we delve deeper into the topics, themes, and stories featured on LoveLustFear. But today, Michele and I are thrilled to welcome Amber Rasmussen, a talented podcaster who hosts two unique shows. In Next Realm, Beautiful Stories from Beyond, she explores emotional and spiritual narratives, delving into personal experiences with mysterious signs, dreams, and coincidences. Her second podcast, Ex-Wives Undercover, Liars, Cheaters, and Love Cons, co-hosted with Athena Klingerman, dives into the tactics of love criminals to help listeners navigate relationships. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We are super glad you're here. Amber, since you are the host of a podcast about spirituality, I thought it'd be really a great idea if we just started by sharing what spirituality means to us. And Amber, why don't you kick us off?
Ooh, that is a question that is kind of hard to put into words. And I feel like it's a personal thing for everybody. And for me, it's a personal journey with my relationship to what some call their God. It could be called your source. It could be your higher self. And really just raising your vibration and becoming a better person as you kind of walk this path here on earth and figure out what your purpose is, really. I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but I hope you get the gist.
And I kind of am along with the lines with Amber. I think it's really personal, and I think sometimes it's really hard to convey in words adequately what spirituality means to an individual person. For me, I'm a big believer in karma. My joke is karma's a big old bitch and she's going to come back and get you. But I do.
It's true. I mean, you're not wrong. I just laugh because how authentic you are.
I do believe in a higher power. What that higher power is, I don't know. I do believe in energy. There is something to Mother Earth and energy, and there is something to thinking positively and doing the right things, because I do believe that what you put out there comes back to you. You better hope it's good, because the bad's going to suck.
Karma can work both ways. What you put out, you get back.
Correct.
Good or bad.
Good or bad.
Right? So I think it's ironic that people use it in both ways. Good karma is going to come back to you for the positivity you bring out in the world, or bad karma is going to come back to you for the atrocities that you impact upon people, or the poor treatment that you do to others out in the world. I view spirituality as sort of a figure eight, an evolving sort of nature where I do believe that. I do believe the energy you put out, you're going to get back. The problem is that we don't know from a timing standpoint, if you believe in the afterlife, which I do, we're very concentrated generally on what happens now in this presence of our life, our existence, our bodies, right? Our minds, our existence, what's right in front of us. But I don't feel that sometimes people think in terms of the evolving nature beyond where we are now in our existence. So I think that part of the discussion has to happen is spirituality something that's tangible or something that can be learned, taught? Does it come from within yourself? You can grow up in one religion or one background or one sort of realm of thinking and then transition to something else based on environment, based on your own experiences. So I think it's an always evolving thing. And I don't always think that you grow up knowing how to identify with it. I think that experiences also give you the tools in order to be more receptive to how spirituality is going to impact your life or others around you. Amber, at what point in your life did you start to realize that spirituality was something that you really wanted to investigate and you really wanted to embrace in your own life? And how did you go about doing that?
Okay, so I will say this first. I think there's a difference between being religious and being spiritual.
100% agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like spirituality is your own, like you have a direct access to something bigger than you, whatever that you believe. I feel like with religion, and don't come for me, I know people might come for me on this, but it's almost like the church is the direct line to the above. They're like the mediator and they tell you what rules to follow and what things, it's almost like I'm the gatekeeper to God, to source, to whatever. And these are the rules that you have to abide by. Whereas I feel like being spiritual, you're kind of on that journey yourself to find that because you actually do have direct access to what's beyond. And really to get to your question is my nephew passed away in 2016 and growing up in your kind of standard Christian family, we went to church here and there, went to church camp as a little kid, but that's kind of where it stopped. And the minute he died and we started having spirit communication, which we'll get into, that's when I started reading and learning about stuff that no one ever talked to me about. And I consider that the spirituality component and just it kind of piqued that interest for me. Like, wait, how come no one told me about this? How come that's never brought up at the dinner table? How come it's just this woo topic? That's kind of where it started.
I'm very sorry about the loss of your nephew. I mean, it was such a tragic thing on so many levels. And I think it's sort of fascinating that it took that to sort of open up this opportunity for you to explore what spirituality could be in your own life. And to your original point, I think that when you look at the church or look at any organized religion, I grew up Roman Catholic, okay, not practicing Roman Catholic now, but left that behind when I was like 16, 17. And the reasons being is that I saw a lot of hypocrisy in the church, especially how they handled a lot of the abuse cases that would come up. And I felt that we're trusting these gatekeepers or these places and these people who some are really mean well, and they really have the message of what Catholicism is and what they want to capture in enlightening people in a spiritual way and their connection to God and Jesus. But at the same point, I think that when you find something in your life that inspires you to go out and find something greater or find a more connective experience with spirituality, it kind of wakes you up a bit. Because I was born into Catholicism. I'm talking like baptism, first communion, confirmation. You just go down this path and it's all kind of set up for you. So I remember being in church when I was a kid. It was less that I was connected spiritually to God or felt that way, but more taught to be in fear of God. So you automatically have to embrace this sort of level of guilt and atone for sins when truthfully at that age, you barely know what a sin is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what is sin? Stealing like a pack of gum from 7-Eleven? Obviously I lived a very idealistic life. Obviously, if that was the biggest thing I did. But that being said, is that when you find ways in your life, and I see this also too with a lot of survivors, is they'll turn to religion or they'll turn to spirituality because of the sort of massive amount of damage that they've had to experience based on relationships and based on the toxic nature, and they look for some sort of higher power. Michele, can you speak to that in terms of how spirituality plays into some of the things that you cover in family law and how much those sort of weigh in when you're dealing with those cases?
Everyone has to find their method and means to get through divorce or a child custody fight. And sometimes it's the only thing you can turn to because unless you've been through it, it's really difficult to understand. I just wrapped up a 3-day trial this week on a divorce. My client at the end of I've talked to him since, and he didn't realize how tired he would be at the end of trial. even though he was on the stand for most of one day. But the rest of the time he was sitting there and he was exhausted. And because the whole process drains you, and it drains you emotionally. I mean, it does drain you physically, but the emotions that get tied up with what happens in divorce and what happens in ugly divorce litigation, it really does drain you. And I tell them on some of these cases, especially the parental alienation cases, I will tell my clients, I said, you hold on to whatever it is that you find is your higher power, your spiritual base, your center. I said, because you're going to need that to get through this. Whatever it is you hold on to it, because you're going to have something like that to get through this, because it's what death, divorce, and taxes. And it's true. So I really do think it's imperative for people to find that sense of spirituality that provides them the comfort needed to be that anchor while they go through something really difficult like that.
I want to know, Amber, from your perspective, what role do you think spirituality has in building or maintaining relationships?
I feel like when you have a strong spiritual sense and you are kind of walking this path, really learning about yourself and growing, because really a lot of us are like, what are we doing here on earth? Why do I have to go through so many hard things? And you realize this is kind of an earth school, essentially. The more you kind of learn about spirituality and our life's path, our soul path, you kind of feel a little bit stronger in the sense of, okay, I'm going to have these hard times. This is what I'm supposed to be going through. It sucks, but there's going to be learning lessons along the way. You also start feeling a little bit stronger in your higher self. Some people like to say, I have spirit guides that help me. And when you hear spirit guides, some people might call it your intuition. So again, it's like you have more of a connection with yourself, your higher being. When you get those, something doesn't feel right in a relationship, you could say it's my intuition. You could say it's my higher self kind of giving me that, hey, no. You need to follow what you're feeling. That feeling is important. So when you're in those relationships, you can kind of feel stronger in making decisions versus brushing them aside. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't a red flag. Maybe I'm going to go this way instead of kind of knowing.
I think the spirituality helps with boundaries too.
Exactly.
Because if you have a good foundation in your spirituality and a good comfort level with it, I think it really helps with you setting boundaries and being okay with setting boundaries.
Exactly.
That's a really brilliant perspective, because I was going to mention, in terms of what you just said, Michele, the spirituality can claim and become the force by which it protects you from certain things, right? And you can basically put that into play, because how often have any of us not maintained our boundaries because we really wanted something to work? Like, we really wanted to maintain a loving relationship. We didn't want to cause problems. We didn't want to cause conflict. We would pacify certain things because we always looked at, well, it could be a lot worse. Well, it's maybe a lot worse out there. Don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And we keep pacifying those things. But at the end of the day, there's something inside of us. As you said, Amber, you can call it instinct. You can call it, whatever spiritual connection you have, but you have to listen to those things. And Michele and I have really talked about this offline, about how much damage your body suffers through for this, how your body keeps the score. That's a book that Michele recommends, and we've talked about it before.
And it so keeps score, y'all. I mean, I think my body's still feeling it. Like, anytime I talk to you, Jake, like, I have to cleanse my soul.
That's not abnormal. I've talked to many women who have that same comment based on conversation with me.
I do actually have some crystals, because I'm not going to say I don't believe in them, but I got to say I kind of believe in that shit. I do. And I hate to call it shit because I don't mean it's bad, but there's a part of me that very much believes in some of the crystals and the energy work. And I kind of do. So I say that because crystals are always, well, not always trending, but I know there's a crystal shop on I-35 that I drive by when I'm on I-35, and it's psychic readings too. Now, I don't want to go for the psychic readings, but I want to go for the crystal stuff.
Wait. I got to ask you, why don't you want to go for the psychic readings?
Well, because I don't know that I necessarily believe that those people are truly psychics. I think most of that's a scam. I do believe there are some legitimate ones.
I've been to psychics before. I've been to ones that I feel are effective, and I've been to ones that are not effective. The ones I find effective, I have a friend named Crystal Coral. She does a podcast called The Visitation. She's a spiritual medium. She is a private investigator. She's got so many things. She is an advocate. She creates bills to basically help children stay out of danger. She's an amazing person. She's given me readings before, and she knew things about my grandmother, as we will discuss in the episode that I recorded with you, Amber, for Next Realm, that there's no clue how she would have known this stuff. So she tapped into that immediately. Then she gave me very interesting advice about dating and relationships and basically told me certain things that I was probably not becoming aware of, especially when it comes to financial things, where she had said that when it comes to these things, your financial card is upside down, meaning that money is just pouring out. And I'm like, you know far too much about me, because I tend to be, when it comes to dating, some people would say far too generous. Other people would say, well, that's old fashioned or whatever. But some would say like far too generous, basically, with this stuff. And usually in positions where I'm not necessarily directly being taken advantage of, but not being appreciated to the full aspect of that. So I come from, for lack of a better term, Midwestern backgrounds. I don't have to pay, but I like to pay. You know what I'm saying? And I like to have that option when I can. So that being said, is that was uncomfortable to hear. So that when you go to a psychic, sometimes you're going to be a skeptic, but other times, I don't know. I feel sometimes people may be uncomfortable. They may get to the root of something.
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to know.
Your arms are folded now and nobody can see this, but I can tell you're a little bit defensive because there's an intimacy that they could unlock, right?
Nope. Nope.
I knew it. I don't know why. I had a feeling that's the major reason was not like, I don't want to pay the $25 or whatever. It really was about, I don't want to hear it because it could be true.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it. No, and then I'm an ugly crier.
You'll cry. You totally will. You're going to get the one that is like spot on and it's going to open the floodgates. Psychics are hard though, because it's not something that they can prove. It's almost like you need to find, because that's why there's so many scammers. Because how do you say, no, you don't have the ability to communicate with the afterlife? Like it's such a gray area. And so unless you can go to someone that's reputable, like Crystal, who has use cases and referrals from people to say, yes, I recommend her. But it's so hard. Like, even though I am a believer in people's abilities, I still am skeptical at the same time.
So when you're looking at psychic mediums or spiritual mediums, and what kind of role have you seen them play in possibly some of the relationship stories that you've covered or even your own personal experiences?
Well, I have to say, I've never been to a medium before, but I've had people who have gone to them. And usually it happens after someone passes and they're looking for someone that can kind of be that conduit to communicate with their loved one. The crazy part is I've been experiencing some personal abilities. I've been getting some signs, right? Communication from the afterlife. And there was this lady called Ask Renee. She's a Portland medium that everyone goes to, and she's well renowned. And they're like, I think you have some abilities, Amber. And so I took this class it was called something about find your spiritual awakening abilities or something like that. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I've definitely am experiencing some signs from my nephew. And then my co-host Athena's sister was murdered. And I believe that her spirit was coming to me. I figured it out after 6 months. So I asked the medium during her course, I was like, this is what's happening to me. And what do you think about that? And she goes, girl, you're not just an empath and intuitive. She's like, that's mediumship. You have the ability of being a medium. And I was like, oh, hell, like, what does that mean? Like, what do I do with that? And so that's when my eyes are like, ooh, mediums. Oh my gosh. So basically, she was kind of saying like, you should really kind of look into this further and you need to protect yourself, because obviously the spirits can pick up that you have an ability to communicate. And so with that comes the good and the bad. And so she's like, let's talk offline after this session and I can give you the scoop. So that was really like, I've never been to a medium before. And then when she's telling me, I think you have medium abilities, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is wild. Because, as much as I'm into it and I'm super curious about it, I'm still a little bit of a skeptic about mediums and psychics. And like, you're going to have to tell me something that you would not know. Like, don't tell me my grandma died, because a lot of people my age's grandmas died. Like, I need to know something more than that. So there's still an element of skepticism for me, even though my sister has gone to them, my best friends have gone to them, and they come back in tears saying there's absolutely no way she wouldn't have known this information. And then when I'm personally experiencing it on my end, then now I'm kind of freaked out. Like, maybe there is such a thing. Maybe there's more to this than what my brain can handle at the moment. But I feel like there's just so much I don't know about it.
I think that you have to find what are the tools that are going to help you connect in a spiritual way. And I think that for a lot of people, psychics are used to motivate them to overcome decision paralysis, I guess you'd say. So it almost tips the scales in whatever direction they feel they should go, based on what the psychic's abilities are. And I think sometimes I do see people using psychic readings as sort of therapy in a way, or
I think it is therapeutic
100%.
for some people.
100%. And even when it comes down to like relationships, you find that so many people, I think, turn to psychics because they don't know what decision to make on something. And I've actually heard more people at times, oddly enough, turn to psychics than therapists, which is I find very fascinating.
One of the interesting things that does come up in my practice is I can't tell you how often I hear, oh, well, we thought we were twin flames. Or you see the notes. It's always the note to the mistress or the side piece, male or female, whatever the side piece is. It's, oh, you're my twin flame. I can't believe I found you. I mean, I can't tell you how many affairs end up in that direction as well. But, oh, I've met my twin flame. In order to be a twin flame, you have to have some belief in spirituality because the two would be mutually exclusive.
I do want to share, if anyone doesn't know what a twin flame is, Medical News Today says the twin flame is a concept that promotes an intense and powerful soul connection between two individuals. No scientific evidence supports the twin flame ideology, and some traits can draw comparisons with toxic relationships. The twin flame is a fairly new concept, often mistaken to be synonymous with the term soulmate. While both describe a profound, life-changing relationship, the two concepts are entirely different. While there are plenty of anecdotes from people who claim to have found their twin flames, no evidence proves the existence of twin flames. We all know this, is that through the podcast, through television shows, different true crime shows, is that the concept has increased in popularity in recent times and has promoted the idea of an intense soul connection between two people thought to be each other's half. This is based on the premise that one soul can incarnate into two separate bodies.
Ugh. Jake and I have debated about whether twin flames are a good thing or a bad thing for lots of stalker reasons. But in order to get to the belief that you have twin flames or you have a twin flame, it's you believe in some kind of spirituality. So what do you think about it?
Oh, I'm very mixed feelings on this one. I feel more than not that it's not a good thing. I feel like it's a control thing and a manipulation in the
100%.
dating world. I don't know. I know they exist. I've heard it, whatever. But I also heard that doesn't necessarily mean you should be together. And it's definitely not always romantic. You can be a twin flame with a different person that's like a mother figure or a father figure or something. It's just like you're connected souls and not necessarily a romantic situation. And I feel like just in today's dating world and the different documentaries out there, I'm like, it feels really negative. It just feels like a controlling manipulation kind of thing. I don't know. I'm really mixed on this one. Help me see either way, both of you.
My other side is if you have a twin flame and you think you have a dark soul, like, is that so your other twin flame is a dark soul too? I'm like, that's bad.
Right.
I think the twin flame things, I kind of agree with you. Like, that's red flag, red flag, red flag, because it is, oh, we're twin flames. We can't be apart. But that happens all the time now in affairs. Like, it is a trending term, just like narcissist is.
Well, and also if someone's like cheating, as an example, I'm a cheater, but we're twin flames. Therefore, you have to take me back because we're
Right.
soulmates and twin flames. And like this person's like, oh, okay, you're right. You're right. We were supposed to be together. So therefore, I will totally ignore all these red flags and BS that you're bringing forth.
Well, how, in terms of spirituality, in terms of abuse within relationships, Amber, have you seen this come up in any of the cases that you've covered, whether on Next Realm or whether on Ex-Wives Undercover, where spirituality is used sort of as an abusive tactic in order to control someone?
Yes, I will say not on Next Realm. Usually it's beautiful stories from beyond, right? So we we haven't touched on any negative stuff. However, on Ex-Wives Undercover, that's the daily. We're doing a story right now. And it's more, I would say, religious abuse than spirituality abuse. We haven't touched on twin flames as of yet, but we do have a lot of overtly religious people and using that as a means to control. We just had an interview and she was saying, my husband lied about this. He lied about that. He's doing this. He's spending our finances and putting us in problem. And his response to her was, God told me, we had a direct conversation. He told me that because I'm the man of the household, what I say goes. And if I feel like I need to lie, then it's okay. So it's one of those things, you know, like God told me this and God told me that. And he would meet with other, I don't even know what religion this was, honestly, but they would meet and these men would basically talk about their marriages and what was and wasn't going to happen in their marriages, come back and tell the wives, like they all agree that you can't work anymore.
I just remember when I was in college, one of their platforms were, I think the wives had to serve their husbands. And of course, I was in my early 20s. I'm like, I ain't serving anyone. Thank you very much. But I grew up Catholic. You know, when the good Catholic, like, don't covet thy neighbor's wife, and you've been doing nothing but coveting thy neighbor's wife. But then you say, I'm going to go say some Hail Marys and I'm still a good Catholic. Okay.
Yeah. And it's such a touchy subject and it's polarizing too, right? Because no one wants to disparage someone's belief systems. And we'll always get well, I'm glad that you talked about it, but my church is not like that. And we do not believe that. And that is true, I'm sure. But we should be able to talk about religious abuse in relationships. It happens all the time. I even had it happen with me.
Well, I mean, it's God wants it this way. God dictates it be this way.
Yeah, he told me that, so therefore this. And, I even remember, this was way years ago in my 20s, fortunately, but
You're like me thinking about my 20s. I'm like,
I know it was so long ago, but
long ago.
I reflect back on that, and it was like a dating situation, and we were young. We were like 24, 25 and having fun. And I was dating this guy, and we had been intimate like most normal dating people do. Well, the next day he brought me a Bible, and it was basically like, you need to find God.
Says the person that was intimate with me.
And I was like, wait a second, the double standard of that. And I was like, how am I supposed to take that? But my little 20-something-year-old self was like, okay, sure. I'd be happy to, not thinking of like, what a hypocrite. What a hypocrite. He's had plenty of, you know what I mean? And it ended up being, he wanted to marry a virgin and have kids. So I was not deemed marriage worthy.
Oh my God, the hypocrisy.
Obviously that didn't go anywhere. But looking back, I'm like, what a piece of shit. Can I say that?
Yes, no, you can say piece of shit.
A POS.
Double down.
But so it can be just a really bad negative thing in the dating and relationship world. I see it all the time.
Amber, what's your position on soulmates? How do you find them? How do you keep them? How do you identify them? Are there more than one in your life?
I've had 2 different experiences with that. So yes, I'm sure there is a soulmate. I believe in soul families. I prefer that because soul families, you can find love again and they could be a part of your soul family very much. Like if you thought you met the love of your life, you don't have to be condemned to being alone for the rest of your life. There's someone that is part of your soul family, and your spouse doesn't want you to not move on. Most spouses don't. However, I did meet this new man for Next Realm, and he was talking about his wife that passed on, and his mind here on earth, he was like, that was my soulmate and I'm not moving on. And I'm going to continue to have a relationship with her when she's in the afterlife. And that was his stance. And he just felt like, I'm fulfilled. I'm good. I have learned to meditate and communicate with her, and we are still joined, and she is my person. So I feel like it's kind of both ways.
My version of it is finding the one. That's how I refer to it as. And part of me believes that there is a one, but I also believe what your one is a different at different points in your life. Like what you may have been your one in your 20s is sure to, for the most part, not going to be your one in your 40s.
This is the one thing that my ex imparted to me, which is a huge amount of wisdom. Season, a reason, or a lifetime.
Yep.
That's when people are in your life for. And it can be family, it can be romantic. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. But I think for you, there's a reason to be hesitant. My perspective on this is that the one is really you. You are the one. When you can fall in love with yourself, other people can fall in love with you. And I think the same thing with soulmates. I think that when you're attracting a soulmate, I don't believe is as much as the other person, but the other person needs to see you the way you should see yourself, if that makes sense. So they're a reflection of the best parts of who you are, but they're also someone who's going to be understanding and sort of compatible with the things that you may not like about yourself, but they don't encourage those things, if that makes sense. So I don't believe there's one soulmate. I used to. I think that we evolve over time. And I also think that people are in your life for a reason, but I also think it's really about where you're at in your life and how much what kind of energy you're putting out. It goes back to those sort of the karmic thing. I was interviewed by a friend for what a karmic soulmate is and what a cosmic soulmate is. Cosmic soulmate is a person who's connected to you by a powerful, fated, and everlasting love. So they've intertwined it with twin flames and everything else like that. But the karmic soulmate is very interesting because it's somebody that is in your life and there's a high level of intensity, but they may not be the person who's going to be there permanently. It's almost like adjacent to the twin flames, if that makes sense.
So I'm trying to play this out in my head. And you say it's the karmic one. So it's like the person that you've got the best sex you've ever had with in your entire life. Like it's just, you don't want to ever leave the bedroom, but it's not the person you can be with long term. Like it's just not meant to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, a karmic soulmate can be a romantic partner with whom you share an intense connection that may stem from an unresolved past life. So it's something that is powerful. The relationship may have its highs and lows and can be marked by passion and arguments. The relationship may involve codependency, miscommunication, or other signs of an abusive relationship. I've had a couple karmic soulmates, but the one I was interviewed for this article for, and the only way I can say this is like this, okay? The connection was so intense with her, between she and I, that just hugging her gave me the same sensation of basically sex in my head. It gave the same chemicals in, I don't know how to put this, but this sort of orgasmic sensitivity and brain shock that did the same thing as that without our bodies being together, if that makes sense. I didn't know what a karmic soulmate was before she interviewed me. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. She told me, okay, this is it. I was like, yeah, that happened to me. You know, what's funny about that is that I had that experience and that intense experiences with someone who wasn't my cosmic soulmate. And technically the situation was very complicated, and I guess I can get into it, but basically she was with somebody else. We had been friends for a long time and communicating. She basically came up to me and we were talking and she goes, I want to tell you something. Okay. And she grabbed my hand. She goes, looks at my eyes. She goes, Jake, I want to fuck you.
That's pretty bold.
No, it was really bold. And I'm sitting there for a second. I knew how hard our chemistry was, and no pun intended there. But in terms of, first off, I was like, in my mind, we were so connected. I was like, yes, okay, great. But I didn't say anything at first. Part of me was like, well, why would her current boyfriend accept this? And I thought, well, is this some other territory they're trying to get into in a poly situation? Basically, he loved her so much that he would allow her to potentially do this. So I took about a week to kind of process things in my head. And I was like, well,
there's the Virgo trait.
100%. We're really connected. It's just like the vibe is off the charts. But what really bothered me was that I couldn't get over the fact that I felt, this is how I am, that it would be a betrayal to him in their relationship if I started something like this. And I brought this sort of level of energy and what I considered a corrosive element. We never, consummated the relationship. But what happened was a year later, we caught up and started talking. Nothing had changed. Like the energy hadn't changed, everything else like that. But she'd now been in more committed relationship with him and everything else. But for me, it was more about not wanting to destroy something. If somebody cares about you that much, that's great. From my standpoint, it's like I can date elsewhere, I can find things. But that was one of those situations where I've never had that as intense at that time or since. That someone you could basically be that connected to, and not necessarily in a fully physical way, but it had all the criteria of someone you were that connected to on a sexual level without actually having sex, which was foreign to me at that point.
The karmic ones are, I have to go back to think about one I had, and it's dangerous, but it's never, but it's not good for you, right? Like, but it's still like, whew.
Oh, you're playing with fire. And this was by far the most intense, but I've had 3 of those where you knew that it would be explosive, but you also knew that it was going to burn out and it would probably not end well.
It was like gasoline, like adding gasoline to a fire.
Yeah,
and
100%.
At some
100%.
point, it's going to blow up. Or every time you get together, it blows up badly, but then you're still too stupid. You keep going back to it because it's just so fucking on fire.
But here's the deal. I'm thinking back to my 20s and I thought that's what love was. Like it had to be combustible. It had to be fire. Like it had to be that.
You're right.
If it wasn't that, then they're not my soulmate. Your parents would be like, no, you want your best friend.
No, you want the flames. You want the fireworks.
I want everything.
Stars.
But then, and that's exactly what happens. It was like, yay, and a huge explosion. But it took me years to figure that out, that there's a happy medium between that and the other.
Because there's not peace with that one.
But like when people are out there dating, listening to the show, like just, trust the oldies here on the panel. Like that's super fun, but don't expect that it's going to be your forever because usually those don't end forever. I mean, maybe some do.
Enjoy it. Take the memories and play it on your big TV screen in your head down the road.
Yes.
What really was the inspiration behind realizing that, okay, I could take something that is important and personal to my life and bring other people into my world and hopefully give them a perspective that would enhance and open up their eyes to sort of things going on in the spiritual world?
Well, it was percolating in the back of my head for a couple years. And really, like I mentioned before, when my nephew passed in 2016, it was just a pivotal moment. It was a huge eye-opening time for me and my family. And throughout the years, we've been kind of reading about spirits and what happens. We've had so many really profound experiences with how he's come through. And then, it was that, I don't know, like the woo, like, is that weird? And you're like, is people going to think I'm weird if I talk about it? And so I'll constantly be saying like, how come people don't talk about this? So when Bradley passed away and I had this visitation dream, I wanted to tell everyone about it because I thought it was the coolest thing. And my mom's like, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe people might think you're strange. You've lost your mind.
Gotta love moms.
Right. And she's like, you can keep it between us, but like, I don't know, people might not be receptive of this. And I didn't care. I just was like, I have to tell my closest friends. And the minute I told my friends, they'd be like, I had an experience too. I'm like, how come I've known you for 30 years and you've never said anything? How come we don't talk about this? And so through those conversations, I kept saying, you guys have incredible stories too, just like my family's. Like, why aren't we expressing ourselves and sharing those stories? So I told Athena, my co-host from XY's Undercover, because honestly, I didn't listen to podcasts prior to creating XY's Undercover. So we had a few years under our belt with that when I started kind of thinking about it. So it took 2 years of finally having the courage. And then Jake, obviously you started LoveLustFear and you had met us and we had conversations about it. And I was like, okay, he's doing it. He's just jumping in and doing it. And so you have this comfort having a co-host. And so I was scared that what if people don't receive it well? What if I'm making a fool of myself? What if this is not going to go well? But I did. You were very much inspiring. And so I just thought, you know what? I might not be 100% prepared. I'm going to make this with love and passion, and I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens. And it's been great so far.
Well, you bring such a wonderful thing to the space. And I think that it's something that I found very refreshing considering that all the work that we do. And I've recommended it to so many survivors. And I've tried to connect you with ones that I've spoken with before that I think could not only gain something from the experience that you provide for them, but also offer anyone listening the ability to kind of pull back the skepticism on things and really understand in a non-judgmental way. As I said before, I wasn't really, to be fair, I wasn't a huge believer in psychic abilities until the passing of my grandmother, to be fair. And we covered that in the episode. And I tell people so much how much the importance of what you're doing. And you sort of made me realize how comfortable I could be sharing this story in the way you did it. It was so respectful. I felt so welcomed to be able to share in that way, like with no one else I've done before. I've never shared that in the capacity and how comfortable you made me feel doing that. So I really do appreciate it. It's an experience I'll never forget.
Oh, that makes me feel so good because that was my hope in it, that people can kind of get rid of that stigma of the woo and stuff like that, that it is something that so many people have experienced too. It just blows my mind that once you ask the question or share your experience, I mean, really, it's just like the toxic relationships we talk about on our other podcast. The minute we started sharing, it was like the floodgates were open and everyone wanted to share their stories. So I think that's just part of the human connection, right? We like to connect and like to share stories of commonalities of things that we've gone through.
We need the connections. I mean, humans thrive on connections. I mean, that's how we operate. How did you and Athena, what inspired you all to create XY's Undercover?
Oh gosh, how do I summarize this one? So in 2019, we both share the same ex-husband. We were not friends. We did not like each other. We were pitted against each other for 5 years that I was with him. She was also with him 5 years. So in late 2018, I kind of blew the lid off of just lie upon lie upon lie upon lie. This man was not just a cheater. He was a con man. He was embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was wild. And during the time I was with him, I was not communicating with the ex-wife. So I finally just reached out to her and said, I'm sure you don't like me. And it was mutual all these years, but I really feel like we need to talk because this is wild. What I'm finding out is wild. So it was in that moment, we just kind of came together and we weren't really going to do anything with it. But then every other day we'd find out more crazy lies and crazy things. And it was just going and going. And we kept kind of joking. We need to write a book. There needs to be a movie on this, like a mini series, like, oh my gosh, one day, haha. And then her sister was murdered in the spring of 2020. And as it was escalating with our ex-husband, he was taking us to court and doing all the narcissistic abuse kind of stuff. Her sister was murdered due to an act of domestic violence. And it just dawned on us that yes, we got a victim's advocate when we were, our ex-husband kind of pulled some things and entrapped me in his home. And we were assigned a victim's advocate. And I kept saying, well, I'm not a victim, though. He doesn't hit me. He doesn't do this, that, and the other. And she's like, dear, I think I need to educate you on what domestic abuse is, the verbal abuse, the emotional abuse, the financial abuse. The list goes on and on and on about the types of abuse he's done to both you women and multiple women, in fact. And with her sister, she ended up dying because of that. And she met him in the exact same way that I did on a dating app. She didn't know who he was. She didn't do a background search. She didn't know his history, just like me. And I fortunately lived, but she didn't. And so he wanted to bring awareness about multiple types of abuse. And it was my co-host's daughter was like, you guys really should do a podcast. And that was during COVID. And so, okay, I got some time on my hands and we didn't know what we were doing. And we threw it together, not thinking anyone was going to listen. And then it kind of blew up. That's kind of how it started. And we actually protected him initially. We did not use his real name. We just thought he's going to take us to court. He is going to unleash the wrath that he is. And so we did. We protected him. We gave him a fake name. And then we realized he was preying on women in a different state. And so doing the same things. And he had used a fake ID and was going by a different name. So at that point, we decided to just out him. And I think we did a social media post and was like, I know we call him Ben in the podcast, but his name is Brandon Johnson and he's a really bad guy. And we just took that risk. And of course, he took us to court for slander and harassment and everything, but we won. And thank God that we did that though, because at the end of the day, that woman in California who was preying on learned about the podcast and she actually connected with us. And because of us, she's alive today because he's in jail right now.
Didn't you all interview her?
No, she did not want to come on the podcast at the time, but she was contacting us and like, I don't know what to do. He's stalking me. He's putting trackers on my car. He knows things he shouldn't. He's breaking into my house. So we were advising her to get cameras inside and outside. You need to get a restraining order. We were walking her through the steps that we had already walked and setting her up for success to get away from him. And right when she got her restraining order, he broke into her home and attacked her. And the rest is history. Like they believe that he was there to either kidnap and or kill her and rape her as well. So had that video footage, he actually thought he broke into her house and he thought he turned off the video. Well, he didn't. So the attack was completely caught on camera and he is now in jail.
Good, where he belongs.
So we didn't know what the ending of our story was going to be. And so as we were doing the podcast, it was sort of unfolding in real time. It was a wild, wild journey.
Wow.
What an incredible impact the work that you've done and the outcome of this situation. It's one of those miraculous things where you get together, you do this thing, and you end up saving someone's life.
It's impressive.
Yeah. It's nothing that we could have ever thought in our wildest imaginations would have happened. We just kind of put our pride aside. We're like, people need to know. This needs to be talked about. And all my missteps, we had to put all of our warts out there in the world because a lot of people will come for you like, wow.
Oh, they do.
They do. I don't agree with your decision. You're so dumb. I can't believe you fell for this comment. But at the same time, there's secretly people emailing us going, I'm actually a psychologist and I fell for something similar. I'm too embarrassed that I'm a smart, educated person and I fell for it. So all the negativity that has come in little doses, not a ton, it's worth it. Because in the end, the people that we're helping not feel so alone because we're not the first and we're not the last to have a toxic relationship like this. I certainly don't think I'm a dumb person, naive, sure, but you don't know what you don't know. When you get into something like this, my mind's not going, oh, he must be embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars. Of course. I mean, what else would I have thought?
The difference is this. If I put 10 questions on a piece of paper and they were all red flags, would you get into a relationship with someone if they had you'd probably say no to all of them. Again, you don't know until you're in those situations. You really don't because there's so many different fabrics. And it's almost like when people comment, they see you as living in a movie in their head or a TV show, right? And they're sort of putting together the scenario and they can watch everything that they think you're going through, but they don't know all the nuances. They don't know all the fabric and the fact that you give people the opportunity to share more of the details. And that's what we're doing here. We're sort of exposing and hopefully removing some of the stigma of judgment to understand the motivation behind these decisions. And I will stand by my words on this. There's nothing people wouldn't do for love, lust, or sex. I really believe that in some form or fashion, some sort of formula, we're all susceptible. How many empires have been destroyed based on one of those three things, if not all of those three things?
Or all three at once.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you want to see Next Realm go? And how can anyone who may have a story reach out to you and connect with you and see if they can share that?
Oh gosh, I just want to see it just continue to grow. I want to hear from everyone. I want to hear all types of stories because there's so many, right? So I had someone write in the other day about I'm a nurse and I work at a hospital and I see death all the time and I see people grieving all the time. And I love listening to these stories because they're all a happy ending. Every single one. Every time a spirit comes through on the other side, it's never a bad thing. It's always a happy ending and a happy story. And I love you. I'm good. I promise. Like, I'm with you. There's always these messages. So for me, it's just so fulfilling. And anyone can send an email to me at nextrealmpodcast@gmail.com. Because I do have a full-time job and another podcast. They're mostly monthly now just because I just can't keep up. But I have a whole entire backlog of stories and yeah, I'm just really excited and maybe one day I'll be able to do it full time. But at this moment, I'm just doing the best I can. And of course, we're on Instagram. We're not on all the socials, but we are on Instagram, Next Round Pod. So you can follow. And I think people always are interested in hearing the story and then seeing the pictures. Like Jake, I'm sure everyone's like, I want to see his grandma.
Mhm.
Like she sounds so cute. And so people want to go see the pictures of the person that had passed on. So what does Bradley look like? What is, because I always talk about what a cute little baby he was. And I was like, well, let me see a picture. Or what about that dog that we just talked about? And
I got such a great reaction from that episode. I shared it with my mom. I shared it with my family, and they thought it was such a wonderful, warm tribute. And as I said before, I never had an opportunity. I never thought I'd be sharing the story. I really am grateful to you for giving me the opportunity to share that. And as I said before, you really are so compassionate and so caring and such a warm spirit that you really welcome me into this scenario, which I didn't think I'd have the opportunity to share. So I really will always be appreciative to you for that.
oh, thank you so much. It's just one of those things too, like with both of my podcasts, there's this stigma about talking about it. So once you share your story, it's almost cathartic and it's like, cool, just own it. This is part of your story. This is part of your path. There's people that can relate to you, people that can learn from you. So yeah, I just love what I do. It's fun.
Oh, absolutely. And this is like through talking and through doing these things, you always are going to attract people that will probably say, oh, I have a story and I may have an experience. And even Haley has dealt with this on multiple levels with some of the things that she's experienced in her own life. Haley, do you want to share a little bit about what you've gone through and maybe potentially set yourself up for a potential episode with Amber?
I've never dealt with anything next realm like directly to me. I've only had one experience where I thought a ghost or like some sort of like being was in my house. And that is kind of a crazy story in itself. But after my dad passed away, my friend, her mom can communicate with the dead. I don't think she calls herself a medium because she doesn't meet with people for that. But like sometimes people come to her and my dad came to her and he told her that he was okay and I didn't have to worry about him. He passed away when he was 50 and it was like unexpected. So it was good to hear that he came to my friend's mom and said those things. And then maybe a year or two after that, I saw my friend's mom in person. This was when I was getting into my advocacy career and I had opened up the conference that day with like my very first ever session of like educating people on advocacy. And so it was like a really special moment. And she pulled me aside and she was like, your dad came to me recently and said that he's really proud of you. I had to excuse myself and go to the bathroom and cry because it was just like so powerful. All I ever wanted my whole life was for my dad to be proud of me. And so for her to say that was really nice. And so that was really meaningful. And she described it as like almost like a parting in the clouds. And then like, it's not that she can like see their face, but they just like come to her and talk to her. And I just thought that was really fascinating. I love hearing other people talk about those things. I work with a family and they were telling me that they were just really missing their only daughter had been murdered and they were saying like, oh, we really miss you. We want you to come home. They were saying that out loud. And then the next day they had a cardinal show up and it just stayed on their porch for the entire weekend.
Yep.
That's the
and didn't
sign.
leave, and I like get
That's the
goosebumps
sign.
thinking about that. And you're like,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful, because people who lose loved ones in such horrific manners, like they need those signs. A lot of the families I work with, they look for those signs. Like another family I work with, they see hearts and things, and I just love that for them. Like I want everyone to have that, because that they're still with you, but like to get those signs, it just like means the world to people. So I love all of that stuff. I wish I was like more open to it. Like I wish that stuff happened to me more, but I just love hearing other people share those stories. So I'm so glad that you have your podcast and allow people to share those stories.
Thank you. I love that. From what I hear is that everyone does have the ability to connect, but it's just like with anything, some people are better at it than others and have more of a gift. But apparently, if you work on it and meditate, you can maybe raise your vibration to be able to do it. So you should try it out, see what happens.
We forgot to mention that you had a Harrison Ford run-in.
Oh, I did.
Because I thought Han Solo was the sexiest thing ever.
Yes. Okay. This was fun. This was one of those little check off kind of bucket things. Not that I ever dreamed of that, but back in 2007, 2008, I mistakenly got into real estate right when the big old bust happened. And so I wasn't working very much and I had quit my other job. And so I wasn't making any money. And I had done some commercial print modeling with an agency. And so I kind of was like, hey, I guess you can send me out for things because I need some money. And they're like, well, there's this opportunity to be a stand-in. And I was like, I don't know what that is on a movie. And they didn't really say too much. I was like, well, what does a stand-in do? And I didn't know. And it's basically the grunt work where you're like the first group of people to go in while they set the stage. And I was kind of like, beggars can't be choosers. I'm going to do this. And I don't really understand what the movie is all about or who's in it. But after I signed the contract and they said, this is kind of what you're going to do, then it was like, oh, it's called Extraordinary Measures. And Carrie Russell, it will be Felicity for anyone from the 90s who know her. You're going to be her stand-in. And you have to kind of match her height, her weight, her body shape, her skin tone, her hair, face shape, so that they can set the scene appropriately. Jake, you know all of this stuff clearly. I didn't at the time. So I was like, I could do that or whatever. And so Brendan Fraser was her love interest in the movie. And then Harrison Ford was the other main character. And so my mom, of course, is like, oh my God, you're going to see Harrison Ford. He's a legend. Oh my God. Oh my God. And I was like, I was more impressed with Brendan Fraser because he was more popular, I guess, from me growing up.
Yeah, because that was at the time, The Mummy.
Encino Man. Yeah.
He was, School Ties and George of the Jungle and The Mummy and all that stuff. And then Felicity, I love Felicity. So I was super excited to meet her. But Harrison Ford, man, he walks on the set and he has a presence. So I just remember that first day, him coming in and it's like, I'm trying not to stare, but like, oh my God, oh my gosh. And then he's such a nice guy though. He is like, we had a bar scene and he would be doing shots with the extras and we had a motorcycle gang for the scene. He's like, can I ride your motorcycle around? He was great. And yeah, I got to meet him and it was great. But he's very intimidating though. He's a really nice guy, but very intimidating at the same time. And so
he has a presence.
Yes. And so there was a day that I had to be her body double. And even though we don't look exactly the same, it was such a scene that no one would know it was me versus her. So I had to wear her same outfit and I had to put a wig on so my hair is exactly the same. And I was kind of across stage and he kept saying, Carrie. And I'm like kind of looking around like, where is she? I don't even know. And then I'm like, talking about me. And then I was like, what do I do? Because he's like kind of far away. So I'm wearing the outfit she was wearing in the scene earlier that day. So he kind of thought I was her. And so then I'm like, what do I do? Harrison Ford's calling me over. Oh, I was like, they're like, go. And I'm like, well, hi, it's just me. What can I do? Like, it was just embarrassing. He was really nice about it. Like, oh, sorry. Because I was like, I'm not Carrie. I'm not sorry, but I can go get her, Mr. Harrison Ford. I will get her.
The whole name, Mr. Harrison Ford.
Do you need something at the snack bin while I'm going? Like, what do you need? Like, I will do whatever. But it was just a fun, like, check off experience. And it was just great. Yeah.
Thank you for joining Amber, Michele, Haley, and I on Love Lust Fridays. If you have a dating or relationship story to share or want to participate in a discussion here on Love Lust Fridays, DM me on Instagram at LoveLustFearPod or email me at LoveLustFearPod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, sharing, and supporting. Links to guest social media and some content mentioned are in our show notes. If you know someone who's being abused by a partner, there is help available. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The National Domestic Violence Hotline provides essential tools and support to help survivors of domestic violence so they can live their lives free of abuse. Call 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233 or text START to 88788.